This video is a recap of the interview I conducted with Elisa Mack, a fifth grade teacher at Guadalupe Elementary School in San Francisco. The of the interview covers inclusive classroom management and community building strategies and systems. Ms. Mack is a fifth grade teacher at Guadalupe. She previously taught at Paul Revere Elementary School. She is Vietnamese English bilingual. Mrs. Mack communicates her expectations for participation and interaction immediately when the school year begins. She actually planned it out beforehand, reviewed her class roster. The first 2 weeks, she goes over the expectations and rules every day and throughout the day to make sure everyone is on the same page. The rest of the first month, Mrs. Mack will coach the students who aren't complying with expectations in order to make sure the whole class comes around to the idea of that they're a community and they have certain rules for participation and interaction with each other and with the adults in the school. Mrs. Mack does connect with the parents by first sending a letter to all the parents and following up with a phone call that's basically a survey so that she can get more information in order to help her serve her students more effectively. She also wants to make sure she has a good working relationship with the families. Mrs. Mack focuses on the personal connection with the students in order to establish a framework of mutual trust and respect. This will be the basis for a culture of collaboration in the classroom for students at all levels of proficiency. She believes a culture of caring starts with respect and personal connections that will thus develop into a cohesive classroom community. Mrs. Mack sets up lessons so that students work individually or in work groups. She does this on purpose, depending on the proficiency level of the student, what's their preferred learning mode. She does differentiate the lesson for the students with IEPs and for the ones that have a very low level of proficiency in reading. She slows the lesson down when necessary. She makes it non-stressful by telling them it's okay if they don't finish that day. They can always go back to it if they're really having trouble, which sometimes happens. She does go teach table, make sure she engages with the students who need the most help, and reinforces learning for the other ones. She does pair students with compatible, proficient peers. She promotes participation in 2 ways. She calls on volunteers, and those are the vocal students that love to raise their hand, and she also uses equity sticks to get participation from the ones that otherwise might just be on the periphery. She does make herself available to her students at lunch and after school. If they want one-on-one assistance with the lessons, she ends up doing it mostly during lunch because most of them participate in the after-school program. She rewards sustained positive behavior. She has a tally where she keeps track of the time periods, and if they reach a certain number, they get to pick from a bin of tactile toys and healthy treats. She holds all the students accountable for non-compliant behaviors and has created a classroom culture where the students hold each other accountable for violations as well, so that if someone violates the class norms, they hear about it from their peers. Racial equity, her class is very diverse. There's only one white Caucasian student. She does, however, make sure that everyone is having access to all the lessons and that she celebrates their cultures. She does have sometimes conflicts that are due to cultural differences, and she will quickly talk to each student, and then when they've calmed down, she'll bring them together so that they can come to an understanding, so that in the future that's not an issue. And at this point of the year, that class, most of them really get along, and race is not an issue as far as the way they treat each other or the way they're treated by their diverse teachers in this school. And we make sure that we do everything we can, and she does, so that race is not an issue as far as your treatment in the classroom and how you view yourself and how she views them. She constantly assesses the student engagement to make sure that all the students have the same access to her educational initiatives to ensure equity. As far as instructional equity, she promotes this by knowing that all students learn differently, so she's constantly rotating the way they learn traditional instruction, gameplay, chess, dominoes, interactive websites where they compete while they're learning, art projects, craft activities. Um, she rotates between individual instruction and small group instruction as needed, depending on the assistance level required by each learner. All students have necessary materials to work on the curriculum area that they're in. She does involve the students to extend learning into the home. Ideas that are of use to me in my classroom. I will communicate with parents more next year, as she does, especially the first month. I will do more gameplay next year as I receive the budget now to order these supplies. I will use the writing journals in order to communicate with the students as she does, because she uses the writing journals so that she can communicate with them in a two-way level rather than just reading their writing materials. My action plan for next year: communicate with the parents more. I will incorporate more gameplay to foster social emotional growth, enhance executive function development, and more diverse methods of cognitive engagement. I will use the writing journals as a method of two-way communication with my students in order to have a better connection with them. I will self-reflect on a weekly basis to ensure I'm adding these actions to my classroom routine. And that is all.